1, 2, 3, 2. Welcome to An Otherwise Quiet Room. I'm Mandy Connell, and we're a web series featuring singer-songwriters swapping songs and stories in social spaces. In the Moreland sessions, we feature businesses and small social spaces and different singer-songwriters for 11 episodes. In every episode, I learn one of their songs, they learn one of mine, and we cover another independent songwriter. I invited Irish-Australian artist Gallie to join me at the Good Room, the Foundling archive. We swapped a couple of songs, including Dr. Sean Miller's Just Can't Let Things Go, Gallie's own Sometimes, and my song The Rocking Chair. We had a good time. Please enjoy.
In a supermarket just last week, a kid pulled a knife on me. I said, for God's sake, I'm 68 years old. He had eyes like a cat. I never saw nothing look so cold. 3 months back, just outside of town, our car broke down on the side of the road. 2 young men laughed as my wife tried to start it again. And I pushed and I sweated, and I pushed and I cursed, and I pushed on till thought my heart would burst. You just can't let things go. You just can't let things go. You just can't let things go. People talk about freedom, but I'm a hard man to convince. I was born pushing, I've been pushing ever since. I've been pushing ever since. It's all I damn well know. And I'm gonna push and push on till I push that car right over the hill. You just can't let things go. You just can't let things go. You just can't let things go. Last week, our daughter came home, told me she was gonna have a baby of her own. When I asked her who the daddy was, she said she didn't know. I said, that's some father you don't even know. Last night as we lay in bed, my wife turned to me and said, just when you think that you reached the end, gonna have to start pushing again. We said nothing as we lay side by side, and I held her hand, and she cried and cried. I would not let her go. You just can't let things go. You just can't let things go. Well, people talk about freedom. I'm a hard man to convince. I was born pushing. I've been pushing ever since. I've been pushing ever since. It's all I damn well know. And I'm gonna push and push until I push that car right over the hill. You just can't let things go. You just can't let things go. You just can't let things go.
So, Gallie,
Yes.
well, welcome to an otherwise quiet room for the Moreland sessions.
Thanks for having me.
I'm glad we could make it happen. Normally I see you in other states, usually.
Abbreviated
In
states.
Australia. Oh, and New South Wales was the last time I ran into you, aside from this, I think. Was it? Pretty sure. We were at Kiama, Folk by the Sea.
Yeah, that was good. That was good crack.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but I was
There
particularly...
was a lot of whiskey, wasn't it?
I didn't drink any whiskey.
Oh, right. So it's just me.
Maybe, possibly. There are a couple of questions that I had, and one of them is, what are you up to now? You were talking about maybe doing some recording.
Yes. I'm going to finish up here and go home, to Ocean Grove, look after my kids. No, I got EP next year, early next year, and then a live EP with video and all of that. Looking for a video guy.
So that's...
Do you know anybody? Anybody good?
He's really good. Agostino Soldati, who's filming this, is fantastic. But 2018 will be maybe when people are watching this, so early 2018.
All right, yeah.
I
So
guess.
it might even be out by then, hopefully. A bit of luck. Yeah, I'm going to record it in a studio live, 5 tracks.
How many people are you recording with? Is it just you, or...?
No, it'll be the full band. I'm not really sure. I'm pretty much sure of the songs, but lineup, it'll be like drums, bass, piano. So it might be strings, and then me being me, I'm thinking, I could bring in some brass. I could bring in, maybe have a horse in the background and fucking a motorbike, and maybe some nuns.
Your last album is absolutely fantastic. There are pubs all over Melbourne playing it.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
I've heard it played at the Union, definitely at the Lomond, an old favourite of ours. But I guess I was curious also to know why you chose the songs that you chose to record for this.
Sometimes, because it's 2 vocals.
Yeah, well, I thought it was perfect.
Yeah. So, I mean, on the record, I just done it where I'm doing both parts, which was well, it was where it was. But since then, I've done it with guys and women, and I really enjoy having 2 vocals on it.
I loved it. I think the mix on the album is really good. I mean, the production is done so that you can you feel different voices coming through. I don't think it's weird that you've done both.
It was a hard song to write. It was really, really, really hard. It was originally like one song, but one freaking really long song.
And then you just...
And then I played the chorus wrong over the verse part. And I went, geez, that actually works over that. And then, so both parts worked over different chords. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I went, oh, I wonder if I could, ooh. And then I got off to thinking, and then I went all opera on it, and then had it was a big epic thing, and it was like, oh, yeah. And then I brought it to my producer, and he told me to put my head in, and we fixed it up.
Well, maybe I should try that with one of my songs, like take the 2 parts and mash them together and see what happens.
Yeah, rip me off.
I'm
Go on.
inspired.
1, 2, 1.
Sometimes
I'm always out of time.
when you move,
Love come running, got me shining down.
real
Singing,
slow,
oh my,
out of time.
here come the long and lonely sky.
I'll try
Hey, I will pick you
to
up.
read the
I
signs.
can't stand it when you talk so rude.
I will try
It's alright, it's
to
alright,
walk real
it's
quiet.
alright.
There must be somewhere we can call our
So
own.
much tired of trying to seep on through.
Somewhere
You gotta
like-
keep on rising, keep on low. You
Somewhere
gotta
like-
keep on rising.
I can't stand
Well, you
it,
know
but
I can
I'm
never
sure it'll be
relax. There's a
alright.
calm coming, slowly gonna blow our
In
minds.
time.
Singing, oh, oh.
Sometimes
I'm always out of time.
when you move,
Love come running, got me shining down.
real
Singing,
slow,
oh my.
out of time.
Here come the long and lonely sky.
I'll try
Hey, I will pick you
to
up.
read the
I
signs.
can't stand it when you talk so
I will
rude.
try
It's alright, it's
to walk
alright,
real
it's
quiet.
alright.
Sometimes
Yeah, we all got fear, but you know that I'm always here.
in
Never
slow,
gone. There's a light,
time.
there's so much light. Yeah, I know you're cold and I know you say
the signs.
enough is there.
I will try
I will try to see the sign, to walk real quiet.
Gracie and Katrina, thank you so much for having an otherwise quiet room to film at your beautiful space.
No worries.
Thanks for
having
having
us.
So we brought Gallie in. He's originally from Dublin in Ireland, and the artist that he chose to cover is also an Irish singer-songwriter who's almost completely unheard of in Dublin. And he's got a kind of interesting web presence, and he tells lots of interesting stories. And I've been sort of Facebook stalking him, and his thing is he constantly just asks people questions about life and their opinions about, you know, small things. You know, what would you do if?
Sounds like us.
Yeah, he's all about stories, and I thought that was great because while the series really focuses on Moreland and really just on local stories, it's kind of nice to have that bridging link outside of the community, taking us to new places and things like that. And I guess for me, it's really great to have had Gallie here because that's kind of in a way what you guys do. What brought on the beginning of the Foundling archive?
Oh, well, right on the beginning of that. So we just come from a family of people who really like to collect stuff, really.
Hoarders even, some might say.
So we always had an appreciation for all these everyday objects, like stuff that had been passed from generation to generation just through our own family.
Yeah.
And the story is that we were just out, like hanging out, shopping in Tyab or something, one of those, you know, antique centres.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw all this awesome stuff that people used to, like family photos and documents of this. And we started like trying to
Don't you
give
throw
it
that
a
in the bin.
home.
It was more like, we need to
Yeah.
save you.
And I think that we Gracie's now a sociologist, and I have an archaeology background, so I think we really had an appreciation for what this stuff could tell the people who, you know, who should really value it. Does that make sense? So
A bit like the National Film and Sound Archive. You don't know what it is until you get there and have a look at it. And
yeah, except we're very much more, I think we're about the everyday and about, so we use the archive to really trying to create projects so people can see the worth in their own archives at home. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we're not an archive that wants to grow. We're actually an archive that tries to help people preserve their own stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
The photographic archive
Yeah.
is definitely,
And then I guess from that, what happened? So from that we started doing these projects. They started off as social history, trying to look at you know, everyday Australian kind of story stuff.
Can you tell us about a project that one of the first projects that you did, maybe, Gracie?
First projects. One of the first projects, Remembrance Day, I suppose.
Remembrance Day,
So
yeah.
we looked at how we commemorate, why we commemorate. That involved interviewing some people, mainly people that we knew, and you know, through our extended networks, who had in some way had experiences of war, but we weren't necessarily looking at, you know, war stories and how people, you know, we didn't want to hear about trauma necessarily, although that did come out in the project. It was more about looking at how having that in your history, having experienced loss and displacement, and that level of trauma has then gone on to impact your everyday life, and looking at the nature of commemoration, I suppose. Like, it was for Remembrance Day, so looking at, you know, why is it that in Australia we, you know, there's quite a bit of pomp and ceremony and, you know, chest beating about the whole thing, and then you've got these whole communities of people who've experienced war firsthand, and they just kind of don't want a bar
And
of it.
also the idea that war is it's publicly, I guess, it's publicly celebrated, but it's personally dealt with, you know, that idea, and that it seems to be part of the, you know, a very Anglo-Australian background, but most of the people who come here come because of some kind of conflict as well, whether that be from Ireland or Syria or whatever. So
Southern Europe or wherever, Egypt.
Yeah, I always love watching how there's a few beautiful shisha bars on Sydney Road, and I sort of made friends with some old guys up that way for a while. I was hanging out, and around Gallipoli, they had these big parties where they kind of celebrated all the friends that they'd made when they came over, and all of the new rituals that they kind of had this sort of new cultural celebration around that day. And I think they were trying to really say, you know, instead of deal with the public grief or the public insanity, just talk about their own experience of all that. Because they, like you said, they'd all come out because of displacement. They were displaced and they couldn't stay home anymore. And that was a really joyful way of them coming out. And they had their old uniforms or the luggage that they had when they came out, and then they had all these stories about when they first came to Australia and where they lived and the friends that they made that way. But now you're not just doing projects, you've got a whole space that people can use sometimes. How did that happen?
So this is kind of our biggest project. I think definitely the most time consuming.
Laborious. It's almost laborious.
And it was pretty, I guess, naive of us, but we just really wanted to see if we could create a space that, or a place where people could find ways of exchanging or having conversations with each other directly rather than through our kind of, you know, lens, I guess. So it's kind of become, we call it a gallery of, I guess, unofficial histories, which sounds a bit, I don't know, a bit special.
A little wanky, a little special. Depends on your perspective.
But really what it means is that we have a lot of events here that are around spoken word and poetry, self-publishing self-published authors like to launch here, and kind of the quiet stories. So
Les Morgan, artists who speak of
their own experiences, really.
You know, all the stories of that. It's that outward. What am I trying to say? It's they're looking at the story from their own perspective, but sharing it to a much wider audience in a way that perhaps we haven't heard that story before.
Yeah.
So like Les Morgan did some amazing work.
It's just really personal, Australian, often kind of political, we've discovered.
Always political, not often kind of political.
How political everybody is.
Speaking of political, how did you end up commissioning the work from Miss Safar out in the alley?
We didn't commission it. She just was around one day and she walked in and she said, "Hey, I like your wall. Can I use it?" And we said,
"Why, sure thing.
Yeah, you can." And actually, we've got one upstairs as well inside. So we've got one here and one upstairs.
Yeah. And one on the outside.
And one on the outside. And it was really just about her wanting to, I guess, share her story and a bit of her, her mission through her art, which is, pretty fantastic. She's a pretty fantastic lady.
Is it?
If you ever get to meet her in person.
I know in the book that we've created with the 16th floor, we've got a piece of artwork in the images. Is that Miss Safar as well? Is that the upstairs piece?
That's the one. Oh no, it is the upstairs one.
Yeah. So that is Miss Safar as well.
Yeah.
I thought so. I just wanted to check.
No, yeah, it is.
Off the top of my head. And of course, you've got Haha's work out the front.
Yes. So. And then again, it's really personal, and I think that's the thing about what we've learnt about operating something like this is that you really do have to draw on your friends and your networks because it's expensive and difficult to especially because we're a not-for-profit. So we do. So Haha used to be the bouncer at a little pub called the Great Britain Hotel in Richmond, where I used to drink because it was free pool on Mondays.
Yeah,
and
very popular.
So we kind of got to know each other. And one day I was watching a documentary called Rush, and he was on it, and I had no idea because back then, like this is nearly 15 years ago, 20 years ago maybe. He was it was underground. Like street art wasn't this thing that it is now, and go wander down Hosier Lane and Melbourne Now and all that stuff. It was really like you weren't allowed to do it. So nobody knew that was him until I saw him on this documentary, and I remembered it and called him when I knew. Who can we get to do something on that wall? And he
so you just
came
happened to have his number and
I Google stalked, of course.
So you don't have a huge web presence yourselves. How do people first hear about you guys?
Usually, as I say, when they meet us. So when we have through the work that we do with the oral histories and the projects, we tend to get our tentacles out for that, to try and get as many people as we can on board to be participants. So that's usually how community groups...
We've been fortunate enough as well to be invited, we've done a few radio interviews and we've
done some public
talks and and that's been nerve-wracking and a little bit fun at the same time.
What was your favourite radio show to go on?
Oh, it was probably our first interview. So the first interview was with Triple R.
Yeah.
Triple R, and that was pretty hilarious, I think, because we were asked some very broad questions which left us to our own devices quite a bit. So we ended up somehow talking about...
We did sound like two chipmunks.
Yeah, totally. Photos of, kind of went into the nitty-gritty of
it
stuff
was crazy.
That maybe was much less PG rated than probably what it should be.
We have a couple of saucy photos in our collection.
But then there was also the Radio National interview that I couldn't bear to listen to because I had such radio interview envy. It's like, Katrina, that was like on my bucket list, and I had just had a baby and I wasn't up for it.
So Katrina
was like, I'll do it. I'll take one for the team, and I'm like, okay.
I would love to go on Radio National. It's all I listen to.
Yeah, but it was nothing. I don't know.
Nothing too crazy out there, but good fun nonetheless.
But I think that's kind of the thing about us is that we want to. I think this is something that, especially the archive and the projects, is something that we can hopefully just keep doing forever. So we're not in it for the
world domination.
So it's not really about, the more publicised you are, the more this kind of work just looks like an iPhone ad. Do you know what I mean? And people start to turn it into feel good, and people start performing for you. So I think in some ways, just being to people, and with some pretty lo-fi equipment, just asking some pretty, honest questions, gets us really honest stuff, honest projects.
I think there's a lot of similarity there between what you guys are doing and what I like to do. I mean, I grew up in a folk background, and for me this series has really just been about showing, giving an intimate window, I guess, into a few songs, and then we're just setting them in local places. And all of the gigs that I went to when I was a kid were in dance halls, TAFE rooms at people's TAFEs, or the back room of a church, or things like that. And they're intimate community spaces. And I kind of like the idea of these interviews where we get to find out a bit about who you are and what you do, and why you've got this space in this old bottle factory hidden. It's almost buried by that monster of an apartment building.
That building wasn't there when we got this place.
Oh, no.
That came later.
Yeah, but in many ways it was good because we had to fight a little bit because this place would have just been a development as well. And so we kind of had to fight a little bit to keep it. And it is one of Brunswick's, I think it's the second or third oldest building in Brunswick or Brunswick East. So we're really kind of happy that we could not, muck around with it too much, I think.
Well, I hope we've captured the skyline in the images that we put up on the website and things like that. But my goal with this, if I have any, is that people get to know who you are. People in the local area get to know that you're here and who you are. And thank you so much for giving people a space to share their perspectives. It's really great of you.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Thank you. Well, we'll see you at the launch, and then hopefully I'll come back and visit sometime. But thanks so much for having an otherwise quiet room in the Foundling archive.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mandy.
I guess the premise of an otherwise quiet room is to have a sort of green room moment where you teach me one of your songs, I teach you one of my songs.
Yeah.
I'm really impressed with how much work you put into learning mine, especially I think I've only given you a week's notice. So
Hey, didn't you threw that verse on me today?
Well, you had to learn a verse. I mean, I thought you were fantastic.
Oh man, I had to go down to found this river, and I sat on the riverbank and learned her song.
Well, it's nice to live near a river, even.
Yeah, it's actually really nice down there, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't feel as if I was smack bang in the middle of Melbourne.
I think one of the things we've been trying to focus on with this season is social space and the role of space in how we create things and how space shapes our mental health and our relationships and all of the things that we do. Do you think much about the spaces that you're in when you write your songs?
All the time. And when I'm doing gigs, everything is about lighting and sound. Everything in the feel of a room. If I walk into I won't play in certain places because they just have the wrong vibe and the wrong sound and the wrong look. But when you get the right room, Caravan. The
Caravan Club in Oakley.
Yeah, perfect sound. Unfortunately, it's closing down. But anyway, and I love in Melbourne. You have these, especially in the north side, you have these great pubs where they still have carpet. So the front room, the Retreat Hotel.
Yes.
Sounds like my dad's stereo back in the 70s, and I used to sit in the front room, and he had just this amazing stereo. The sound was brilliant.
We actually got to film one of the episodes upstairs at the Retreat.
Right, yeah.
And that was a fantastic room. Not carpeted, but just gorgeous at Amelia Shore, which is the bar just above.
Okay.
And it's full of all of this beautiful Art Deco work and chandeliers, and obviously a lot of care has been put into
That's
making
in the
sure.
retreat, is it?
Yeah, well,
Oh, right.
above, yeah.
Yeah, I've never been in there.
But I love playing the front bar of the retreat too.
Yeah, it's great. It sounds just fantastic. Yeah.
Is there something you look for particularly in a social space?
What do you mean?
Like, for me, I have a lot of trouble with too much sensory overload. So if there's a lot of reflective surfaces and a lot of people and a lot of cutlery clinking, I have anxiety and I have to leave.
That's a sound thing, isn't it? The hard surface and the sound bouncing.
Yeah.
And then everybody has to speak louder, which means the next person has to speak louder, and the music has to go louder, and it's just a horrible.
Yeah.
It's like white noise and.
So that's kind of
And
my.
then the screens on in the which is a lot of bars on the south side, because I spend most of my time on the south side. When I first came to Melbourne, I landed in St Kilda, woke up really early, about 5 o'clock in the morning, went for a jog on the promenade. I thought, this is just freaking amazing. Coming from rainy, freezing cold Dublin, that's not the cleanest city in the world, best city in the world, but not the cleanest. To walking along that promenade on a summer's morning, it was amazing. It's like amazing. Like the whole of Melbourne is it's just so different than Europe and even America. I mean, them tired old cities in America, dusty old tired cities. And you come down to Melbourne, everything's clean, and you can't really find. I mean, I know it's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But compared to, London or, Paris or Rome or Turin or Dublin, it's just so clean. And it's just a great city.
I think the businesses and the spaces in Moreland, people put a lot of care into how they look and how they feel and what they're used for, and how safe and comfortable you feel in them, and how inclined you are to use what they do. So if it's food or if it's a space where you create things.
Yeah.
And we've really been trying to show that off as much as we can. Myself and Agostino Soldati, who's filming this entire series.
Yeah.
But I certainly hope that you get to come back north side and play in Moreland, Brunswick, Coburg.
Yeah, me too. Well, I will be next year. I'll be doing a lot more. But it's not just an accident. Like Melbourne is, because it's not just Australian, because you go to Sydney, and Sydney's freaking shit.
Ooh.
But it's got, like, the harbour and the bridge is just, you can't beat it. It's spectacular. There's nowhere on the planet like it. But, that's it. Maybe a bit around, what's that area, near where the Forum is, and or the Enmore.
Newtown.
Yeah, around that area is kind of nice. But it hasn't got a patch on Melbourne. Melbourne's just, I've seen a programme, actually, Great Music Cities. I think it's on Foxtel or something like that. Great Music Cities. And the first episode is Great Music Cities of the World. And the first one is Melbourne.
I think so.
It's a fantastic city.
I think
really great.
Melbourne definitely, and Brunswick in the middle of it.
Live music generates more money than AFL, soccer, cricket, basketball, whatever else,
and you can
combined.
You can look up the figures at the Music Victoria website.
So all of that sport and all of that, the mainstream media, and everything goes on sport in this city. And there's nothing wrong with that, whatever. But everything goes on media, or goes on sport. The mainstream media, the newspapers, the television, everything sport. And actually, more money is generated from live music than sports.
Which is why I certainly hope that Moreland continues to support the live music venues that we have.
Damn straight.
And they're so good.
'Saving up for a rocking chair, can't afford it but I'm almost there. Never put me in a nursing home, I'd rather die on my own. Like Sophie and Kate, they'll never find me till they miss the rates. I will have been so long in my comfortable home, all they're ever gonna find is bombs. hard just to make ends meet, to beat a path on the city streets. I found a house, but I'm never home. I'm selling boxes on the telephone. I wear a jacket and a woolen suit. I'm always looking for a new recruit. I wanna dance on the eastern beaches. Here I'm just another drone. Rocking on a wooden porch,
I keep a handy torch,
eating casserole from garden store,
cooking chicken in a big old pot,
sleeping under handmade quilts,
writing songs on the nightstick,
walking under open skies.
City life is all
a lie. To be complicated, it doesn't matter if your jeans are faded. What kind of life is your retirement if you can never get yourself unbent? I'm saving up for a rocking chair, can't afford it but I'm almost there. Never put me in a nursing home, I'd rather die on my own.
Thanks again for coming on An Otherwise Quiet Room, and I'll see you at the next gig.
Nice one, thanks.